The Devil's Church, Machado de Assis. One. Of a wonderful idea, an old Benedict manuscript tells that the devil, one day, had the idea of founding a church. Although his profits were continuous and large, he felt humiliated by the separate role he had played for centuries, without organization, without rules, without canons, without ritual, without anything. He lived, so to speak, on divine remnants, on human carelessness and favors. Nothing fixed, nothing regular. Why wouldn't he have his own church? A church of the devil was the effective means of combating other religions and destroying them once and for all. So, let's have a church, he concluded. Scripture against scripture, breviary against breviary. I will have my mass, with plenty of wine and bread, my sermons, bulls, novenas, and all the other ecclesiastical apparatus. My creed will be the universal nucleus of spirits, my church a tent of Abraham. And then, while the other religions fight and divide, my church will be unique. I will find neither Muhammad nor Luther before me. There are many ways of affirming. There is only one way of denying everything. Saying this, the devil shook his head and stretched out his arms with a magnificent and manly gesture. Then he remembered to go to God to communicate the idea to him and to challenge him. He raised his eyes, burning with hatred, harsh with vengeance, and said to himself, "Come on, it is time." And quickly, flapping his wings with such a noise that it shook all the provinces of the abyss, he tore himself from the shadows into the infinite blue. 2. Between God and the devil, God was gathering an old man when the devil arrived in heaven. The seraphim who were garlanding the newcomer immediately stopped him, and the devil remained standing at the entrance with his eyes on the Lord. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "I do not come for your servant Faust," replied the devil, laughing, "but for all the Fausts of the century and of the centuries." "Explain yourself." "Lord, the explanation is easy, but allow me to tell you. First collect this good old man, give him the best place, order the most tuned zither and lutes to welcome him with the most divine choirs." "Do you know what he did?" asked the Lord, his eyes full of sweetness. "No, but he is probably one of the last to come to you. It will not be long before heaven will resemble an empty house, because of the price, which is high. I'm going to build a cheap inn. In a word, I'm going to found a church. I am tired of my disorganization, of my haphazard and adventitious reign. It is time to obtain the final and complete victory. And so I have come to tell you this, with loyalty, so that you will not accuse me of dissimulation. Good idea, don't you think? You came to say it, not to legitimize it," warned the Lord. "You are right," replied the devil. "But self-love likes to hear the applause of the masters. The truth is that in this case, it would be the applause of a defeated master, and such a demand. Lord, I descend to earth. I will lay my foundation stone. Go. Do you want me to come and announce the completion of the work? It is not necessary. Just tell me right now why, so tired of your disorganization, you only now thought about founding a church?" The devil smiled with a certain air of mockery and triumph. He had some cruel idea in his mind, some spicy observation in the saddlebag of his memory, something that, in that brief instant of eternity, made him believe himself superior to God himself. But he held back his laughter and said, "I have only just concluded an observation, begun centuries ago, which is that the virtues, daughters of heaven, are in large numbers comparable to queens, whose velvet mantles are finished with cotton fringes. Now, I propose to pull them by that fringe and bring them all into my church. Behind them will come those of pure silk." "Old rhetorician," murmured the Lord, "take a good look. Many bodies that kneel at his feet in the temples of the world, where the skirts of the room and the street, their faces are stained with the same dust, their handkerchiefs smell of the same scents. Their pupils sparkle with curiosity and devotion between the holy book and the mustache of sin. See the ardor, the indifference, at least, with which this gentleman puts into public letters the benefits he liberally spreads, whether they be clothes or boots or coins or any of those materials necessary for life. But I do not want to seem to dwell on petty matters. I am not speaking, for example, of the placidity with which this judge of brotherhood, in the processions, piously carries your love and a commendation on his chest. I'm going on higher business. At this, the seraphim flapped their wings, heavy with boredom and sleep. Michael and Gabriel looked at the Lord with a look of supplication. God interrupted the devil. You are vulgar, which is the worst thing that can happen to a spirit of your kind, replied the Lord. Everything you say or say is said and repeated by the moralists of the world. It's a worn-out subject, and if you have neither the strength nor the originality to renew a worn-out subject, it is better that you keep quiet and withdraw. Look, all my legions show on their faces the living signs of the boredom you give them. This same old man looks sick, and do you know what he did? Already said no. After an honest life, he had a sublime death. Caught in a shipwreck, he was going to save himself on a plank, but he saw a newlywed couple in the prime of life who were already struggling with death, gave them the lifeline, and plunged into eternity. No audience, the water and the sky above. Where do you find a cotton fringe there? Sir, I am, as you know, the spirit that denies. Do you deny this death? I deny everything. Misanthropy can take the form of charity. Leaving life to others for a misanthrope is really boring them. Rhetorical and subtle. Exclaimed the Lord. Go, go, found your church, calls all virtues, gathers all fringes, summons all men. Let go, go. In vain the devil tried to say anything more. God had imposed silence upon him. The seraphim, at a divine signal, filled the sky with the harmonies of their songs. The devil suddenly felt that he was in the air, folded his wings, and, like lightning, fell to the ground. 3. The good news, 2 men once on earth. The devil did not waste a minute. He hurriedly put on the Benedictine cowl, as a habit of good repute, and began to spread a new and extraordinary doctrine with a voice that echoed in the depths of the century. He promised his disciples and followers the delights of the earth, all its glories, the most intimate delights. He confessed that he was the devil, but he confessed it to rectify the notion that men had of him and to deny the stories that the old devout women told about him. Yes, I am the devil, he repeated, not the devil of the sulphurous nights, of the soporific tales, the terror of children, but the true and only devil, the very genius of nature, to whom that name was given to drive him away from the hearts of men. See me gentle and graceful. I am your real father. Come on, take that name, invented for my disgrace, make it a trophy and a banner, and I will give you everything, 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 everything. That was how he spoke at first, to excite enthusiasm, to rouse the indifferent, to gather, in short, the crowds around him. And they came. And as soon as they came, the devil began to define the doctrine. The doctrine was what it could be in the mouth of a spirit of denial. That's about the substance, because, regarding the form, it was sometimes subtle, other times cynical and blatant. He claimed that the accepted virtues should be replaced by others, which were natural and legitimate. Pride, lust, and laziness were rehabilitated, and so was greed, which declared itself to be nothing more than the mother of economy, with the difference that the mother was robust and the daughter was thin. Anger had the best defense in Homer's existence. Without the fury of Achilles, there would be no Iliad. Muse, sing the wrath of Achilles, son of Peleus. The same was said of gluttony, which produced the best pages of Rabelais and many good verses of Hesiod. Virtue so superior that no one remembers Lucullus' battles, but only his suppers. It was gluttony that really made him immortal. But, even leaving aside these literary or historical reasons, to simply show the intrinsic value of that virtue, who would deny that it was much better to feel good food in one's mouth and belly in large quantities than bad food, or the saliva of fasting? For his part, the devil promised to replace the Lord's vineyard, a metaphorical expression, with the devil's vineyard, a direct and true expression, as he would never fail to provide his people with the fruit of the most beautiful vines in the world. As for envy, he coldly preached that it was the main virtue, the origin of infinite prosperity, precious virtue, which came to make up for all the others, and talent itself. The crowds ran after him excitedly. The devil instilled in them, with great strokes of eloquence, the whole new order of things, changing their notion of them, making them love the wicked and detest the healthy. Nothing is more curious, for example, than the definition he gave of fraud. He called him the man's left arm. The right arm was strength, and concluded, "Many men are left-handed, that's all." Now, he did not require everyone to be left-handed, was not exclusivist, that some were left-handed, others right-handed, accepted everyone, except those who were nothing. The most rigorous and profound demonstration, however, was that of venality. A casuist of the time even confessed that it was a monument of logic. Venality, said the devil, was the exercise of a right superior to all rights. If you can sell your house, your ox, your shoe, your hat, things that are yours for a legal and juridical reason, but which in any case are outside of you, how is it that you cannot sell your opinion, your vote, your word, your faith, things that are more than yours because they are your own conscience, that is, yourself? To deny it is to fall into the obscure and the contradictory. Aren't there women who sell their hair? Can a man sell some of his blood to transfuse it to another anemic man? And will blood and hair, physical parts, have a privilege that is denied to character, to the moral portion of man? Having thus demonstrated the principle, the devil did not delay in exposing the advantages of a temporal or pecuniary order. Then he also showed that, in view of social prejudice, it would be advisable to conceal the exercise of such a legitimate right, which would be to exercise venality and hypocrisy at the same time, that is, to deserve twice. And he went down and up, examined everything, rectified everything. It is clear that he fought against the forgiveness of injuries and other maxims of mildness and cordiality. It did not formally prohibit gratuitous slander, but it encouraged its practice in exchange for payment, whether monetary or otherwise. In cases, however, where it was an imperious expansion of imaginative force, and nothing more, it prohibited receiving any salary, as it was equivalent to making one pay for perspiration. All forms of respect were condemned by him as possible elements of a certain social and personal decorum, save, however, the sole exception of interest. But this same exception was soon eliminated due to the consideration that interest, converting respect into simple flattery, was the cinnamon applied and not the other that finish the work. The devil understood that he had to cut off all human solidarity. In fact, love for one's neighbor was a serious obstacle to the new institution. He showed that this rule was a simple invention of parasites and insolvent traders. One should only show indifference to one's neighbor, in some cases hatred or contempt. He even went so far as to demonstrate that the notion of neighbor was wrong, and he quoted this phrase from a priest from Naples, that refined and learned Galliani, who wrote to one of the marchionesses of the old regime, "Take care of your neighbor. There is no neighbor." The only situation in which he allowed loving one's neighbor was when it was a question of loving other people's ladies, because this type of love had the particularity of being nothing more than the individual's love for himself. And as some disciples thought that such an explanation, based on metaphysics, escaped the understanding of the masses, the devil resorted to an apologue. 100 people take shares in a bank for common operations, but each shareholder only really cares about his dividends. This is what happens with adulterers. This apologue was included in the Book of Wisdom. 4. Fringes and fringes. The devil's prediction came true. All the virtues whose velvet capes ended in cotton fringes, once pulled by the fringe, threw the cape to the nettles, and came to enlist in the new church. The others arrived behind, and time blessed the institution. The church was founded, the doctrine spread. There was not a region of the globe that did not know it, a language that did not translate it, a race that did not love it. The devil raised cries of triumph. One day, however, many years later, the devil noticed that many of his followers, in secret, practiced the ancient virtues. They did not practice them all, nor in their entirety, but some, in parts, and, as I say, in secret. Certain gluttons would retreat to eat frugally 3 or 4 times a year, precisely on Catholic holy days. Many misers gave alms at night, or in the sparsely populated streets. Several squanderers of the public treasury returned small amounts to him. The fraudsters spoke, once or twice, with their hearts in their hands, but with the same dissimulated face, to make it seem that they were misleading others. The discovery astonished the devil. He set out to learn more directly about the evil, and saw that it was very widespread. Some cases were even incomprehensible, such as that of a druggist from Levant, who had poisoned an entire generation for a long time, and with the proceeds of the drugs helped the victim's children. In Cairo, he found a perfect camel thief, who covered his face to go to the mosques. The devil found him at the entrance of one and threw the procedure in his face. He denied, saying he was going there to steal a drugman's camel. He stole it, in fact, in front of the devil, and gave it as a gift to a muezzin, who prayed for him to Allah. The Benedictine manuscript cites many other extraordinary discoveries, among them this one, which completely disoriented the devil. One of his best apostles was a Calabrian, a 50-year-old man, a renowned document forger, who owned a beautiful house in the Roman countryside, paintings, statues, a library, etc. He was fraud personified. He would even go to bed to avoid confessing that he was healthy. Because this man not only didn't steal the game, he also gave tips to the servants. Having gained the friendship of a canon, he went to confess to him every week in a solitary chapel. And, although he did not reveal any of his secret actions, he crossed himself twice, when kneeling and when standing up. The devil could hardly believe such treachery, but there was no doubt the case was true. He didn't stop for a moment. The astonishment did not give him time to reflect, compare, and conclude from the present spectacle something analogous to the past. He flew back into the sky, trembling with rage, anxious to know the secret cause of such a singular phenomenon. God heard him with infinite complacency, did not interrupt him, did not reprimand him, did not even triumph over that satanic agony. He looked at him and said, "What do you want, my poor devil? Cotton covers now have silk fringes, just as velvet covers once had cotton fringes. What do you want?" It is the eternal human contradiction.